Hi, my name is Sofia Lopez, and I am the Chair of Summit Studies for the G20 Research Group. The G20 Research Group, based out of the Munk School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto, is motivated to increase accountability for G20 leaders while increasing the accessibility of G20 summit negotiations and commitments for the general public. We achieve these goals through our compliance reports, which both monitor each G20 member's policies and initiatives and also assess their adherence to the commitments made at the summits. I am happy to present the 2019 Osaka Compliance Report produced by a bright team of analysts, which tracks the G20 members' commitment to 19 key issue areas derived from the G20 Osaka Leaders Declaration. These 19 commitments were carefully chosen on the basis of its significance in current affairs and how well it reflects the Japanese presidency's priorities for the summit, among other factors. Commitments from this report include the usual subject areas for the G20, which include macroeconomics, taxation, development, and climate change, for example. But specific to the Japanese presidency's priorities for the G20, some of the commitment texts have a digitalization and/or aging focus. The G20 Research Group's emphasis on public and accessible compliance assessments is backed by our methodology. All of the research conducted for a compliance period, which for the Osaka cycle is June 30th, 2019 to October 10th, 2020, comes from publicly available sources such as government press releases, data from international organizations, and reputable news sources. Then each member is scored on a scale from -1 to +1. -1 being non-compliant, 0 partially compliant, and +1 fully compliant. The overall compliance for the Osaka cycle is 79%, which is higher than the historical average of 70%, and 1% higher than the previous Buenos Aires summit. Organized by commitment, the health commitment on public preparedness ranks first at 100%, followed by a labor and employment commitment on opportunities for youth at 95%. The trade commitment on open markets saw the lowest compliance at 44%, and the environment commitment for marine litter and microplastics was the second lowest with 48% compliance. A substantial factor affecting these compliance scores is, of course, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. G20 members invested more resources in increasing public health capacity to combat the virus while also undertaking efforts to mitigate the socioeconomic effects like unemployment of the pandemic. The G20 members scoring the highest on compliance is the European Union at 100%, followed by Germany at 94%. The G20 members with the lowest compliance scores are Indonesia and South Africa at 66% and 68% respectively. This year's G20 host, Saudi Arabia, ranks 14th with an average compliance score of 71%. In particular, Saudi Arabia scored full compliance on 10 out of the total 19 commitments. These 10 range from quality infrastructure investment to inclusive growth, investment in human capital, and a gender commitment on education and training. Saudi Arabia scored partial compliance on all other commitments except 2, which were the health commitment on active aging and the aforementioned environment commitment. Saudi Arabia's compliance results, as well as the average compliance scores of each commitment, demonstrate an overall alignment with the Saudi presidency's theme of realizing opportunities for all in the 21st century. The ample attention paid to public health measures and socioeconomic assistance positions this G20 summit well for productive negotiations.
Hello, my name is Kaylin Daw, and I'm the Compliance Director for Climate Change Innovation for the G20 Research Group. Climate change has been referred to by the United Nations as the defining issue of our time, in which we are in a defining moment. As such, the G20 has committed to addressing climate change. At the 2019 Osaka Summit, G20 members stated their intention to strive to foster innovation in a wide range of areas for low emissions and resilient development. This commitment recognizes that, in order to properly address climate change, countries not only have to address the cause, greenhouse gas emissions, but also the need to mitigate and prevent adverse effects of climate change. In order to comply with this commitment, G20 members had to adhere to 2 different components: lower emissions and foster resilient development. For example, investment in renewable energy, carbon capture technology, and disaster reduction and recovery programs. Moreover, a threshold was required to quantify the wide range of areas the G20 members had committed to fostering innovation in. Thus, the threshold was set for 3 unique actions to lower emissions and 3 unique actions to increase resilience. By the end of the compliance cycle, the final score was 85%, with no members receiving a score of non-compliance. 14 members received a score of +1 for their comprehensive actions to both lower emissions and to foster resilient development. These members are Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Italy, Korea, Turkey, the United Kingdom, the United States, and the European Union. The score of 0 indicates that these members have fulfilled one of the respective components of the commitment, either lowering emissions or fostering resilient development. In this category, there are 6 members: Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa. In most cases, the members completed the low emissions aspect and fell short of the resilient development threshold. The G20 Research Group has tracked actions taken by the G20 to tackle climate change for numerous years, with overall results varying temporally and across individual G20 members. This year's average compliance score was 0.70, which is a decrease from the 2018 Buenos Aires Cycle Commitment, Energy Security, Cleaner, Flexible, and Transparent Systems, which scored 0.75. Contrastingly, this year's score of 0.70 is an increase in compliance from the 2018 Buenos Aires Cycle Commitment, Climate Change, Disaster Resilience, where the score was 0.40. The outcome of this compliance cycle is significant to the Riyadh Summit because it demonstrates a recognition that climate change needs to be addressed comprehensively. Throughout this cycle, we witness unique approaches to achieving that goal. For example, transitioning to green energy solutions, implementing recovery programs, as well as incorporating nature-based solutions and indigenous knowledge. Saudi Arabia's theme for the Riyadh Summit is Realizing Opportunities of the 21st Century for All, highlighting the importance of advancing and promoting sustainable energy resources while also adapting to and mitigating the effects of climate change. It is crucial that G20 members continue to work together to reduce climate change vulnerability so that the opportunities of the 21st century can truly be actualized by all. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I hope you are all doing well during these uncertain times. My name is Diego Vasquez. I am a lead analyst with the G20 Research Group based at the University of Toronto. Alongside our compliance director, Angela Ho, and a team of compliance analysts, we researched the G20's compliance on commitments regarding investments in human capital as outlined in the G20's Initiative on Human Capital Investment for Sustainable Development at the 2019 Osaka Summit. This commitment feature has 3 components. 1. Investing in quality education for achieving sustainable development and inclusive growth. 2. Investing in education for creating innovation. And 3. Investing in education for resilient and inclusive futures. We then scored G20 members as one of either no compliance, -1, partial compliance, 0, and full compliance, +1, for their actions taken during the Osaka Summit cycle, which is the period of time between the Osaka and Riyadh summits. To receive a score of no compliance, a G20 member needed to comply with none of the aforementioned 3 components within the commitment feature. To receive a score of partial compliance, a G20 member needed to comply with 1 or 2 of the 3 components. Finally, to receive a score of full compliance, a G20 member needed to comply with all 3 components of the commitment feature. For our research, G20 members scored strongly within the commitment feature. On average, 93% of G20 members complied with the commitment, and no member scored below partial compliance. The general trend in compliance is quite interesting vis-a-vis the COVID-19 pandemic. While one would expect G20 members to divert their attentions from specific commitments towards economic stabilization and public health precautions, our research shows G20 members displayed outstanding resilience and commitment to investing in human capital, throughout the pandemic. In particular, since May 2020, an additional country achieved full compliance from a previous partial compliance score, and nearly every G20 member continued to expand their work. Of all G20 members, Argentina, Australia, Canada, China, France, Germany, Indonesia, Italy, Mexico, South Africa, the United Kingdom, the European Union, and Saudi Arabia showed exemplary commitment to investing in human capital for sustainable development. These G20 members led the way in investing in education by providing several mediums for their populations to have access and success in their educations. For instance, several of these members coordinated unprecedented education delivery methods, such as e-learning and many workarounds for standard testing to accommodate their populations. 3 G20 members did not achieve full compliance. First, Brazil fulfilled 2 out of the 3 components, yet they missed out on investing in education for creating innovation. Next, Korea fulfilled 1 of the 3 components, but they missed out on investing in education for creating innovation and investing in education for resilient and inclusive futures. Last, Russia fulfilled 2 out of the 3 components, but missed out on investing in education for resilient and inclusive futures. All this said, it is important to recognize the salient and varying effects the COVID-19 pandemic had on G20 members' capacities to act and work between 2019 and 2020. Ultimately, our research shows strong compliance by G20 member states.
My name is Alyssa Atef, and I'm the Compliance Director for the Environment Commitment. The defining feature of this commitment was the declaration to take national actions towards the prevention and significant reduction of marine plastic litter and microplastics to the oceans. The commitment to prevent and significantly reduce the discharge of both marine plastic litter and microplastic waste, in tandem with the announcement of the Osaka Blue Ocean Vision, demonstrates a multilateral commitment towards environmental protection, energy growth, and sustainable production. Moreover, the scope of this commitment also demonstrates an evolved global understanding of the harmful impacts of marine plastic litter and microplastics upon aquatic life. In order to achieve full compliance, members were required to take national actions to prevent and significantly reduce the discharges of both marine plastic litter and microplastics to the oceans. Furthermore, partial compliance was awarded to members who addressed the discharges of either marine plastic litter or microplastics. Members that received the score of no compliance failed to implement measures to address the discharges of both marine plastic litter and microplastics. At the end of the summit cycle, the overall score for this commitment was 48%. 6 members scored no compliance, 9 members scored partial compliance, and 5 members scored full compliance. Members that scored full compliance include Australia, Germany, China, Korea, and the European Union. Members that scored no compliance include India, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, and Russia. Members that received scores of full compliance implemented a wide variety of measures to combat marine plastic litter discharge and microplastics, including the banning of plastic products, the banning of microplastic beads, and a significant improvement in recycling capabilities and waste reduction strategies. For countries that received scores of partial compliance, it was often due to a lack of action towards the prevention and significant reduction of microplastic discharge. A significant limitation noted by members was a lack of research conducted by the scientific community regarding the presence of microplastics within the environment and its effects upon the health of humans, aquatic life, and wildlife. This suggests that further research is necessary to better understand the effects of microplastics upon the environment, such that stronger and more effective policies to curb microplastic discharge can be taken as a result of this enhanced understanding. Thus, the outcomes of this commitment are significant towards the Riyadh Summit, as the outcomes demonstrate 3 key findings. First, the G20 and the global community as a whole are facing an increasingly urgent environmental situation, with marine plastic litter and microplastic discharge being a continued area of concern given the degree to which these materials are utilized and their lack of biodegradability. G20 members took a strong stance to combat this issue at the Osaka Summit, and given the scoring outcomes, additional measures can further be explored to combat this issue. Second, Additional research is needed in order to better understand the effects of microplastics upon the environment. With a strong understanding of the interaction between microplastics and the environment, members can implement effective actions to reduce the impacts of microplastic discharge to the ocean. Finally, stronger waste management strategies and improved recycling capabilities are highly effective measures that help prevent the discharge of plastic litter. This is an additional area of action which members might consider exploring further when looking at strategies to reduce marine plastic litter and microplastic discharge overall. Thank you.
My name is Shamsheer Malik, and I am a lead analyst for the G20 Research Group for the gender commitment to address the gender gap in unpaid care work and to facilitate women's participation in the labor market. For this commitment, each G20 member state's compliance was measured on the basis of two factors. The first being a consistent increase in public services and government spending to address unpaid care work. And secondly, the implementation of policies to facilitate a family-friendly workplace. Overall, the G20 achieved a compliance score of 73% under this commitment, and the highest performing countries under this commitment were Saudi Arabia, India, France, the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union, Turkey, Australia, and Canada. These countries have taken substantial steps to support women's participation in the labor market, especially during COVID-19. Countries that have achieved high compliance scores under this commitment have taken consistent action to support women entrepreneurs. For example, Canada's Rebuild, Reopen, Revive initiative from July 2020 allocated 4 million Canadian dollars to support 700 women-led businesses. Other actions taken by countries that have performed successfully under this commitment include action towards early childhood care policies. For example, the government of Germany has taken many steps at the local level to increase and strengthen its child daycare facilities through the Good Child Care Act. Policies related to women's skill development are also essential for women's integration into the labor market, and Saudi Arabia has taken many steps to ensure that women have the necessary skills to compete in today's labor market through the Ministry of Information Technology as well as the Ministry of Human Resources Development this year. Countries that have achieved a medium level of compliance, such as Brazil, China, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, and Argentina, have not shown enough evidence of either public services or implementation of policies towards family-friendly workplaces. The lowest scoring country for this commitment is South Korea for showing negligible evidence of either public services or the implementation of policies oriented towards making workplaces more family-friendly. Last year's overall score for the gender commitment for G20 member states was a 65%, and this year's 73% is a substantial improvement.
My name is Wenyi Jin. I'm a lead analyst at the G20 Research Group for the Health Commitment on Aging Populations. I worked alongside our compliance director, Susha Guan, throughout the 2019 Osaka compliance cycle. The leaders' declaration published after the 2019 Osaka Summit contained a promise to promote healthy and active aging through policy measures to address health promotion within Article 31 in the Global Health section. Our research group marked this statement as a priority commitment because demographic transition is a transformative force with major implications on society and the economy. It is not only important to engage older adults in labor and employment, but also essential to consider factors that contribute to the well-being of older adults in terms of inclusion, mobility, diversity, and equity. This commitment comprised two distinct elements, the first being healthy aging and the second being active aging. On the one hand, supporting functional ability for seniors and improving their environment with attention to diversity and equity are examples of actions that support healthy aging. While on the other hand, active aging focuses on health, participation, and security. This includes supporting health and caregiver services for the elderly, preventive health care, seniors' inclusion in society, and ensuring food and income security for seniors. As a result, each member needs to take actions on both elements to achieve full compliance. By the end of this compliance cycle, about half of the G20 members complied with their commitment in promoting healthy and active aging in their societies. This year might prove to be special, however, since the members' efforts for complying with this commitment's specific criteria were offset by the need to combat and remedy for the negative impact induced by the COVID-19 pandemic. Many governments took immediate actions to support seniors in the nursing home environment, such as ensuring their personal security with investments in personal protective equipment, restricting external visits, increasing the caregiving workforce, and providing seniors with financial assistance. The average compliance score was 55%, which cites a 30% decrease from the 85% compliance with the previous commitment to strengthen the domestic and international universal health coverage after the 2018 Buenos Aires Summit. 8 of the G20 members scored full compliance, 6 scored partial compliance, while 6 scored no compliance, including Saudi Arabia, where there is heavy reliance on family members, younger generations, and the community to care for and support the elderly. As well, Saudi Arabia is currently in the process of privatizing its healthcare sector into a public-private partnership model, as outlined in its vision for 2030. The compliance outcomes of this commitment are meaningful to the Riyadh Summit because of the Saudi G20 presidency's focus on realizing opportunities of the 21st century for all. Members who scored full compliance, most notably Australia, did so through strengthening the social and healthcare system as a whole, while dedicating special efforts to the most vulnerable population within their society. To adequately support and empower all members of the society, G20 members must ensure socioeconomic and cultural inclusivity for seniors, in addition to women and young people, during their development. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has also underscored its desire to build a vibrant society with strong foundations in its Vision 2030. Inspired by the European Union's innovative use of digital solutions and technology to increase the accessibility of services to the elderly, the G20 members might consider exploring creative applications of technology to better the experience of their underserved communities, in line with the summit's goal for shaping new frontiers. With shared wisdom, all members can adopt long-term, bold strategies to share the benefits of innovation and technological advancement for all people to live, work, and thrive.
Hello, my name is Vani Kopalakrishnan, and I'm the lead analyst in the G20 Research Group for the Terrorism Commitment on the new subject of Internet security. The commitment consisted of 3 distinct features. The first was realizing an open internet through actions dedicated to creating an accessible digital environment free of illicit terrorist activities. The second was realizing a free internet by fostering a digital world that reflected freedom of expression, access to information, and human rights. And finally, the third commitment feature was realizing a secure internet through actions such as locating and preventing terrorist content and activity from appearing on the internet. By the end of the compliance cycle, the average compliance score was about 50%. This is the G20's lowest compliance for the commitment compared to previous years. 3 G20 members scored no compliance, which means that they did not meet either of the 3 commitment features outlined. 14 members, including Saudi Arabia, received partial compliance, which indicates that these members took action that either met 1 or 2 out of the 3 commitment features outlined. And finally, 3 members, Canada, Korea, and the European Union, achieved full compliance. So these members who scored full compliance did so through partnerships with both regional governments and organizations, by achieving multilateral agreements, and also by seeking cooperation efforts outside of the G20 and with non-state actors. In fully addressing terrorism and internet security, G20 members must look to collaborate with organizations and communities and must make more of an effort to seek solutions outside of their domestic borders. However, it is also important to note that the COVID-19 global pandemic could have played a contributing factor in the low compliance scores for this cycle. Saudi Arabia contributed to its commitment to realizing an open, free, and secure internet by adopting initiatives to serve global cybersecurity. One of these initiatives was to empower women in cybersecurity by encouraging them to actively participate in the industry. This not only promotes the professional development of women, but it also increases human capital within global cybersecurity. Such an initiative fits very well with this year's G20 Summit theme, which is realizing opportunities of the 21st century for all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sonia Dobson, and I'm a research analyst with the G20 Research Group for the Trade Commitment on the World Trade Organization Reform. WTO reform has been sought after for many years, with this current round of trade negotiations beginning in November 2001 and referred to as the Doha Development Round. The objective is to achieve major reform of the international trading system through the introduction of lower trade barriers and revised trade rules, particularly improving the trading prospects of developing countries. The Doha Development Round was slated to be completed by the 1st of January 2005, but is still ongoing. The commitment on WTO reform focuses on improving its functions, which are providing a negotiation forum to liberalize trade and establish new rules, monitoring and administrating multilateral trade policies, and resolving disputes between the 164 members. The three key priorities of this commitment and of WTO reform are addressing problems with the existing dispute settlement system, including the current shortage of appointments to the appellate body, strengthening the work of the WTO's regular bodies, and improving the WTO's negotiating work. Actions that contribute to complying with this commitment include engaging in discussion on the appellate body and how to overcome the current impasse, improving the monitoring of and upholding WTO regulations, increasing transparency, making proposals, cooperating in negotiations, and updating the rules to keep up with the changing landscape of international trade. International trade has been evolving and modernizing over the last few decades, while WTO rules and regulations have failed to match that evolution. G20 members made significant progress on this commitment, earning an overall average compliance score of 93%. None of the G20 members earned no compliance, and only 3 scored partial compliance: France, Italy, and the United States. This was due to the lack of action on addressing problems with the dispute settlement system and the appellate body. The United States playing a considerable role in the appellate body's inability to function properly by blocking the appointment of new members. Compliance on this commitment is much improved from the commitment made at the 2018 Buenos Aires Summit. We therefore support the necessary reform of the WTO to improve its functioning. This previous commitment only received an average compliance score of 80%, with Saudi Arabia and South Africa scoring no compliance. However, Saudi Arabia achieved full compliance with the 2019 Osaka Commitment on WTO reform. In March 2020, the Saudi Arabian presidency launched the Riyadh Initiative on the future of the WTO at the first meeting of the G20 Trade and Investment Working Group. The purpose of the Riyadh Initiative is to provide an additional opportunity for members to work constructively towards the necessary reform of the WTO by identifying common principles, foundational objectives, and a collective vision. The G20 actions to support world trade and investment in response to COVID-19 also supports the necessary reform of the WTO. Although there has been substantial development on WTO reform since the 2019 Osaka Summit, there remains much work to be done and tangible action to be taken within the WTO. The 12th WTO Ministerial Conference, the highest decision-making body of the WTO, was scheduled for June 2020, but due to the pandemic had to be cancelled. As well, the new Director General was meant to be announced on the 9th of November 2020. The announcement has been postponed. Both these events have impacted the ability of the WTO to implement reforms. Saudi Arabia has taken a strong stance on WTO reforms as president of the G20, and ideally will demonstrate that position at the summit to push much-needed consensus.